Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. In preparation for the new solo Star Wars Stories movie, I've been reading a lot of the old expanded universe novels and comics, and I figured we should all brush up on Han Solo's legendary past before we see this new film. In the next week or so, we'll be covering everything from Han Solo's childhood to his career in the Imperial Navy. We might even do some videos about Lando and Chewie. So stay tuned, hit that subscribe and notification button so you don't miss out on all that great content. Today we're going to start out with Han Solo's childhood, which is very un-Disney-like. As a matter of fact, Han's early childhood is quite similar to the novel Ender's Shadow. If any of you guys have ever read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Rough beginnings oftentimes help shape individuals into something great, and Han, well, he had a really tough childhood. His first memories growing up were of the street. Han was abandoned by his parents at a very young age, and he doesn't really remember anything about them. It's almost as if the memory of them is too painful. What Han did remember was being hungry and cold while living on the streets of Corellia. But even at that age, he was smart enough to beg for scraps of food and survive on the streets. This caught the eye of a man named Garrus Shrike, who happened to be watching him. Garrus knew Han's name, something that the young boy had forgotten. Obviously, Garrus knew a lot about the young boy, and he used that information in order to entice Han to join his gang. He promised to one day tell Han more about his parents, and he also promised 3 square meals a day, which is important for a growing boy. Shrike was in the business of rescuing street urchins like Han and then using them to beg and pickpocket passerbys. Han's new home was the former Liberator class Republic troopship, now renamed the Trader's Luck. While on board, Han meets his first Wookiee. Her name was Dulana. She used to cook on the ship, and she kind of adopted Han. And for once in his life, the young boy had someone who cared about him. Han improved his begging skills and eventually graduated to burglary and pickpocketing. Eventually, he would even help Garrus Shrike to pull long-term cons. This oftentimes involved Han and Garrus pretending to be an upper-class Corellian family so that they could trick other rich folk to invest in their scams. It was during this time Han also learned how to become a swoop pilot. He was so good at racing that he became the champion swoop racer of all of Corellia. Of course, these jobs benefited Shrike a lot more than they benefited him. And whenever Han disobeyed Shrike, he would get the crap beaten out of him. At his core, Shrike really didn't care much about Han besides the fact that he made him a lot of money. Shrike was not a nice guy. One day, Dulana managed to coax some information about Han from Shrike when he was extremely drunk. Dulana had found out that Han's last name was Solo. After doing some research, Han learned that Solo was a pretty famous name on Corellia. It was tied to some of the first settlers on the planet, and it was also the name of feared pirate lords. Han took this information and ran away from the Trader's Luck to go look for his relatives. Eventually, Han found his cousin, Thraken Sal Solo, who turned out not only to be a sadistic bastard, but also didn't really know who Han's parents were. Eventually, Thraken betrays Han and reports him to Shrike. When Shrike finds Han Solo, he almost beats him to death. Solo would continue doing jobs the next few years for Garrus Shrike and go on crazy adventures. He once got stuck in a gladiator fight in a penal colony and somehow defeated 3 much larger combatants in unarmed combat. It's kind of like something the Dos Equis man would do. But eventually Han Solo got tired of working for Shrike. He was tired of getting beaten up by Shrike too. But as he's saying goodbye to Dulana, Garrus Shrike finds him and prevents him from escaping. With Dulana's help, Han manages to defeat Garrus and his henchmen. But Dulana is mortally wounded. Han held the Wookiee in his arms as she died. He promised one day he would return the favor and always be on the lookout for Wookiees who needed help. And one day he would, when he finds Chewbacca. But that's a whole nother story. Han successfully escapes and then lands his first legit job. Well, it isn't that legit. He becomes a shuttle pilot on a Hutt spice factory world. But that's beside the point. Han is sick of being a criminal and lying constantly. He wants to go straight and narrow. His ultimate goal is to join the Imperial Navy. And we'll be talking about that story in our next episode of Generation Tech. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Well guys, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.